Welcome to the REI Mastermind Network, where host Jack Haas gathers amazing stories from leaders in real estate investing. In each episode, our guests will tell you what they're doing that works, what they've tried that failed, and best of all, you'll learn actionable steps to take your real estate investing to the next level. Now, here's Jack with another value-packed episode.
We have Rocco Carriero on. Rocco, I really appreciate your time. And this is going to be a slightly different conversation because, like I've mentioned in the past, we really want to treat this as a business, and we are entrepreneurs when you are in real estate investing. So Rocco has a book out. I'm going to point everybody to your website, Rocco, because I think that's probably where they can download a free chapter and get some additional information on it. But the book is called 3 Chords Approach to Life and Wealth Management for Business Owners. And you can see that at roccoacarriero.com. And I'll make sure to have that link in the show notes because the last name is spelt a little different. And I want to make sure everybody has that. So check your show notes. If you go into your podcasting app, it'll be an easy one touch to get over to Rocco's website. Really appreciate your time, Rocco.
Thank you, Jack, for having me.
So let's start things off. Like what caused you to write this book?
Well, Jack, I've been working with business owners now for about 25 years, specializing in working with business owners, CEOs, and entrepreneurs. And so, for the past 25 years, I really got to see who were the really successful people, who were the ones that were financially successful, but they have a lot of trouble with their family or personal relationships, or they had trouble with their health. And I also got to see super successful people that had true wealth. And those are the ones that were financially successful. They had a successful personal relationships with their family and their friends. And they also were in great shape. They took really good care of themselves, and they were mentally fit as well as physically fit. And I decided to come up with this book called The 3 Chords Approach to Life and Wealth Management for Business Owners that looked at all 3 areas of a business owner's life.
Sure. And it's kind of a neat analogy that you have there because, each string of your life intertwined together to essentially make a rope. It makes the situation stronger. How did you come up with that concept or that analogy?
I was talking with a friend and about the concept, and he had said, "Wow, that sounds like a biblical phrase, something in the Bible that spoke about 3 chords, and that each of the chords tied together basically made it not breakable." And I thought that was really interesting. And I think in the Bible, it looks at it differently than the way that we're looking at it in the book. And so I decided to go with it and say, this 3 chords approach through 3 strands tied together was much stronger than if each one was laid out individually. So if you think about it, the 3 areas that we just spoke about separate are not as strong when all 3 areas are working together.
Mm-hmm. This concept now, really what you're talking about to a certain extent is this whole concept of work-life balance. And sometimes it almost seems out of reach. How have you found to be able to advise some people on how to achieve that?
It's really hard. You would think that work-life balance is easy. It's really hard. And the way that we've been able to advise people is in doing it the way that I do it. And I really kind of plan these things out. I mean, I operate a very busy professional life with my wealth management practice and my, writing the books and all the things that I do on the publishing side. And I have 2 kids. I love my kids. I love my spouse. And I want to be there, and I want to do just as good of a job with them. And then there's myself as an individual. I'd like to be able to go play golf and go fishing and hang out with my friends and take care of my health. And so all 3 are only possible to do at a very high level if you plan them out. Pen to paper, have a strategic plan, model calendar, when you're actually going to operate in those 3 different areas.
So is this something that you learned as you progressed in your professional career, or is there like a background story of when you were growing up?
That's a great question. Nobody's ever asked me that question. And I think it was through, I sit in 26, 30 different meetings a week with successful business people. And through seeing the people who were really happy, or the people that were upset, or the people that had constant problems, the people that did not focus in all three areas had a lot of problems, right? So if they smoked 2 packs of cigarettes a day and they paid no attention to their personal life, I would see how that cord would snap. Or the people that would, be in great physical shape and operate a super successful business, but they were married 2, 3, 4 times. Or the person that had a great personal relationships and they were in great shape, and they kind of let their business was kind of dwindling away. So I said, well, you know what? The 3 common areas that kept coming up in all of these meetings, and it must be 15,000 meetings over the past 25 years, were those 3 different areas. And I said, wow, if I could work on those 3 different areas myself, I think I will have a more fulfilled life than if I just focused on 1 or 2.
Mm-hmm. That's really interesting that, we have, through networking and people that we know and a few other things, I think it's rare for somebody to take a moment and look at those people that surround you and actually learn those type of lessons right there in such an intimate fashion like that.
We sit around the conference table, and I get this opportunity to learn from so many different people. I mean, a lot of the clients that we work with are, basically age 57 plus. So I'm getting lots of feedback from people in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and even in their 90s. And we get to hear all kinds of stories and real live situations of do's and don'ts. And if you keep hearing the same don't do in multiple meetings, you might want to say to yourself, if you come to that fork in the road, don't take that path of the don't do situation.
You're right. So, another thing that you talked about is taking care of yourself, and especially regarding your health. And that reminds me of a phrase I've seen, shared around the internet and social media quite a bit, is the concept of, if you don't take care of your health now, you'll be forced to later.
It is. It's so true. That is an area that I am always working on, right? So, when I say by always working on, I'm either working on it mentally or I'm working on it actually doing things. It's hard. Because I'm active with my family and I'm active with my business, the area that tends to suffer the most is myself. And I've really come to learn that, me personally, I don't exercise and I don't eat well and take good care of myself for the reason of being a super fit Ironman. I do it to make sure that I have longevity and that I can be the best person I could be for my family and for my clients. So we all have different motivations, but the piece of self, if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be here to take care of your clients, your business, or your family.
And I think there's a big impact to your mental health as well. When you're physically in better condition, it starts to remove that brain fog, and you start to think a lot more clearly and be able to make some of those decisions in a better mindset.
100%. I just started rebounding, there's like a little mini trampoline, and I'm going to tell you, just doing 15 minutes a day of that opens the lymphomic system, increases energy. I mean, you don't have to exercise 2 hours a day. 15 minutes on that little rebounder creates energy, and it carries through the whole entire day. I think that NASA's done studies on that and shows that rebounding is one of the most effective, efficient forms of exercise.
So, we talked about the business aspect too. Like, what are some of those steps that you've noticed from some of those people in your network, and that that inspired this book? What are some of those pieces of business exercise that people are doing to become successful?
I would say if you talk about on the business side and on the financial side, a lot of the business owners, they own their own real estate, right? So they have their business. Many of these are really successful businesses that they build underlying equity in their companies, but they also own the underlying real estate that their businesses are housed in. Mm-hmm. And so they get the equity component there. So worst case scenario, if they can't sell their company, they're usually coming out with a few $1 million worth of real estate that they house their business in, which allows them to enter into retirement and go through a liquidity event. So whether they rent out the building or they sell it and invest the dollars differently, that's one of the things that I've seen. Also, a lot of successful business owners, they set up, they make sure that they're going to have different buckets of dollars to tap into at some point down the road. So whether it's real estate income, portfolio income, whether they do private lending, own other interests in other businesses, whether they keep their business and they just become like a passive business owner. These successful business owners have multiple sources of income. So if one area doesn't work out, there's usually another 2, 3, 4 other areas that they're generating income to cover their expenses.
Sure. So just a reminder, everybody, head over to roccoacarriero.com for some additional information and to check out that book. So Rocco, one of the things, I keep picturing these 3 chords, and now you've built this rope, you found that balance. And I can kind of see it. You've kind of threw it over that tree limb, and you're using it now to climb your way up into a wealthier lifestyle and a healthier situation. What are some of those things that you've been advising those entrepreneurs and CEOs on how to manage their money and their wealth as they're progressing?
This morning I had a conversation with a client that has a goal of accumulating about $150 million by the time he passes on. So pretty ambitious goal, $150 million. And I said, by going through the planning process, he's already done really well. And he's in his early 50s. And by the time he gets to 85 or 90, I'm going to show him, okay, this is how much your assets will appreciate to. And in order to get to this $150 million number, this is how many properties you're going to have to accumulate. This is how much you have to save in investments. And so through going through the planning process, that one step of doing a real plan and getting very clear as what are the key requirements, what exactly is it that you need to do in order to achieve the goal and the objective, is the number one thing that if somebody's interested in achieving that financial success, what they need to do.
Mm-hmm. This goes back to something that I know my listeners are probably tired of hearing me say, but it's much like when we're doing real estate investing. I really am a strong believer of writing things down and actually making your plan, and because until it's on a piece of paper, that's when it becomes a target versus a dream. So when you actually sit down with somebody like you and actually make a plan and execute it, that's when things can become achievable.
You go from a dream in being intangible to something written down. At least you have something tangible. And there's something real powerful about that. If listeners haven't actually tried it, they should do it, and they should revisit that. It's amazing what you can accomplish by doing that one step that you had suggested.
Sure. So let's talk about some of the risks. What are some of the risks to wealth that people should be aware of?
There are the first, if it's a young listener who's listening in and they have a young family, it's the risk of premature death or premature disability. Making sure that they take a look at the risk management part of their life. That's some of the risks. Another risk is leverage and liabilities, taking on too much risk and not really understanding the risk, and also not understanding that, okay, well, if you overstretch yourself, you may run the risk of getting yourself into serious financial trouble. That's another risk. other risks are sector related, right? So, just focusing in one area, and if that area goes bad, not really having any other types of investments or income sources than in just one area. So those are just three potential risks that you see there. So whether it's premature death, credit related, and also just being heavily focused in one sector.
So, I have to go down this road because I'm sure people are thinking of it, is that we're kind of seeing a little uncertainty in the market and a few other things right now, whether it's due to COVID or a few, whatever else is going on right now. Yep. Are there anything you've been advising people to do in order to prepare for a possible downturn or a few in this uncertain times?
One of the key things that we do for people is we help them prepare for the certainty of uncertainty. Mm-hmm. And nobody saw COVID coming. Nobody, there's so many different things that we don't know what's actually happening. But if a person is prepared, no matter what gets thrown your way, you're going to be able to deal with it. And I'll give you, here's the example. My whole office team, our corporate office is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. They get a lot of snow. They get a lot of snow there, and they were prepared for the snow because based upon being prepared for the snow and the ice, they were able to transition to a work from home environment due to COVID. Same thing with our office. Our whole team here has laptops, and we're in the Northeast, so when there's snow, everybody works from home. When COVID rolled out and that happened, it was very easy for us to transition to work from home for a couple months until we felt it was safe to come back.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of interesting what the situation has done, because it forced me to take a look at the business and adapt to the situation. Everything from showing rental units to taking a look at properties to purchase. Everything changed. And actually, even though we might be coming out of the backside of the whole COVID lockdowns and everything else, some of those processes are going to remain in place because it just frankly has made things easier.
Yeah, there's been a lot of learned business lessons that came as a result of COVID, unfortunately, but fortunately, but unfortunately. And there are, many companies have set up new processes, and they're not going to go back to doing things the way that they did. I know, like, some people like to believe that we're going to go back to the way that things were prior to COVID, but I'm not in the camp that believes that, I believe that the world has shifted. Part of COVID has propelled things basically 10 years into the future, specifically with technology and the way that people are doing things. So, we'll see. But, as you talk about real estate and real estate type investing, people are always going to need a place to live, and people are always going to need places to store their things. And so, there's certain aspects of the real estate world that I think are terrific, and there's certain areas that I think that people probably need to be more cautious about as well, just like anything.
Right. Well, a lot of people who get into real estate investing, one of our focuses is the concept of generational wealth. Can you talk a little bit to how you help people plan for that and how to pass this on to the next generation?
Yeah, I think that's in the book. We talk about transitioning assets from one generation to the next, and and real estate is a long-term investment for the most part, right? And so those are assets that can be improved and then transitioned from one generation to the next. And we work with people on that. And, first generation wealth creators, which are our favorite people to work with, they work real hard at trying real hard to set up their set up their families and themselves for financial independence. And many times, if it's in real estate, that creates multi-generational wealth. Transition those assets that have been improved, and then their family that can help provide income from their families. And I think about that myself. The building that I'm in here, I think about eventually my kids, whether they'll keep it or they'll sell it. And then as I do other real estate projects, I think about that, as well too. So real estate is a great tool for multi-generational wealth. I mean, there's probably like 7 families that own all the real estate in New York City, basically.
Mm-hmm. That also brings me to another question. Like when we started this conversation off, I mentioned that a lot of real estate investors, I really keep pushing the concept that we need to treat this like a business, and we are entrepreneurs. With that, just like when we review properties, we're always looking for that exit strategy, whether it's wholesaling the property, fix and flipping it, or holding it as a rental, that type of thing. But we're always looking at that exit strategy on a building level. But we rarely talk about that on a business level because that actually could be a possibility as well. How can you help some entrepreneurs with essentially an exit strategy for their business?
Well, I know business owners that sell their businesses and they decide to develop real estate companies. And if they're going out there and buying strip mall type businesses, place that you might have a deli, nail salon, 3 or 4 pizzeria, a couple of different things. And we work with business owners on that. And it's a great, but you're right, they have to treat it as a business. And, with collecting the rent and property management and putting money back into the business, one of the things that I have is, so as I do my own personal planning for my own wealth management practice, aside from that, is that I do have a vision to have kind of like a small real estate company. I've accumulated some different properties over the years. And, you go from having clients like we work with to, your tenants are your clients as well. And you got to, you treat your clients well, right? That's part of it. So, that's kind of the thought.
With being an entrepreneur too, there are things that probably you're so focused on your day-to-day operations and trying to get the next deal done, or you're trying to keep all the balls in the air. One of the things that I think is important is for us to make sure that we are planning for our retirement. And unfortunately, part of that is considering elder care eventually. Talk a little bit about how important that might be.
Yeah. Elder care, really important topic. At some point, we're all going to get older. I think the statistics show that 1 out of 2 people are going to need some type of, whether it's nursing home care or assisted living. And that costs a lot of money. And there's different ways that people can self-insure that, whether they buy long-term care insurance, whether they use their own liquid investable assets. But I've also seen people earmark a piece of real estate where they say, you know what, hopefully I'm not going to need extended care, but they circle a property and they say they own multiple properties. They say, you know what, rather than buy, rather than put the money into some type of insurance product or something like that, they buy another piece of real estate and they say, if I need care, this property is going to get sold and it's going to fund my care, which I thought was, it's really kind of interesting. It's a different way to look at it from a long-term care perspective.
Sure. Well, just to remind everybody, head over to Carriero.com. We'll make sure to have that link in the show notes. This has been a great conversation. I really appreciate your time again. But before I let you go, is there a question you wished I would have asked you here today?
I have a question for you. My
Sure.
question is around real estate. When you look at all the different sectors of the real estate market, which area do you think for somebody that wants to be kind of like a passive real estate investor, what area should people be kind of looking at?
Well, I always say is that if you're getting into rental properties, you should always run your numbers so that it includes property management, so that is a way for you to be more passive. There's a lot of great turnkey providers that are available as well that will actually go as far as to find the property, rehab it, and even put in a resident so that you can just buy it from there, and then they'll manage it going forward. You got to do your due diligence on those turnkey providers, but that's a great way in which to get into real estate investing and then generate that passive income.
Terrific. Well, thanks for that advice, Jack.
Well, I really appreciate your time. And this was a great conversation. Again, I'll make sure to have those links in the show notes. I really like the concept of the 3 chords. I haven't heard that analogy before, and I really see how that could be beneficial.
I'm glad you enjoyed the book, and all the best to you as you close out calendar year 2021.
Well, thank you, sir. You have a great day.
Thank you so much.
Have you learned at least one actionable step to incorporate into your real estate investing? If so, please consider returning some of that value by leaving a positive review, subscribing to our YouTube channel, or joining our growing network on Facebook and Twitter. You can find links to all of our social media accounts in the show notes. See you next time.